Story time about how I shot my boyfriend's eggplant. I was a sophomore in college at this time with my boyfriend Michael and my best friend Serenity. One day, my best friend Serenity buzzed down my college dorm room and was crying hysterically. She was telling me she just came back from the doctors and got terrible news. Her boyfriend Brad cheated on her and gave her herpes. She felt so embarrassed, and I promised her I wouldn't tell anybody. So I told my boyfriend that Serenity was starting to have relationship problems and we should probably be there for her more. So every now and then Michael would say, "Hey babe, I'm going to go check on Serenity," and he would hang out with her by herself, which I had absolutely no problem with. But then later on they started to hang out without me without even telling me that they were hanging out. I honestly felt like I had nothing to worry about knowing the circumstances. And my boyfriend, he was not a cheater. So I thought. So one day I was taking a shower, and as I was washing down there, stuff started to burn. I hopped out of the shower and sat on the toilet to take a good look, and I had bumps. These were not razor bumps, they were bumps. So I went to my doctor immediately, like for part 2. This is part 2 about how I shot my boyfriend's eggplant. So like I said in part 1, I went to the doctors so quick. Once they tested me for everything, they told me that I should have my results in about 2 to 3 days. 2 to 3 days later exactly, I got my results. I had herpes. Once I read that I tested positive, I knew exactly where it came from. So I called my boyfriend and I said, "Hey, where are you?" He goes, "Oh, I was just checking on Serenity again." I said, "Okay, well, I'm going to go to class now." I was lying. I was on my way to see what the hell they were doing. So once I get to Serenity's, I bust down the door, and you guessed it, they were doing it. So Michael hops off Serenity trying to run to me, apologizing, "Babe, I'm so sorry." I had my dad's gun and I shot his eggplant. I was just like, "You won't be needing that anymore, because boo, you got herpes." He would have never slept with her if he knew she had herpes, but that just exposed the fact that he's a cheater. Oh, and for Serenity, I whooped that ass. Herpes was the last thing she was worried about. If my life was going to be ruined, then so was theirs. Story time about how I slept with my own dad. By the way, this story is anonymous. Now, keep in mind, I never knew who my dad was from birth, but I knew he lived in the same state as me. So I was a senior in college, and it was getting so hard for me to graduate. So one day I went in early to speak with our professor about the homework, and we had a new professor. I was so upset because our other professor was so lenient with me. He understood everything. I was going to have to catch this new dude up on everything. I was hoping he wasn't strict, but just like I thought, he was extremely strict. He went by Professor Tom, which was his first name because he said it made him feel old to go by his last. So graduation started coming up, and I was talking to my best friend like, "Girl, what should I do?" I was failing so many of my classes, it was just so hard. Then when I told her we had a new professor, she was like, "Oh, girl, you screwed." So once me and her got to class the next day, she was like, "Oh, girl, he is cute." She's like, "You know what you're going to have to do by the end of the semester if you're still failing, right?" Like for part 2. Part 2 story time about how I slept with my biological father. By the way, this story is very anonymous. So my best friend was suggesting that I had to sleep with him to pass my classes. I did not want to take it there, but by the way my grades was looking, I had no choice. So I asked him to start tutoring me after classes. He agreed to tutor me, and I got a lot closer to him. So one day I came in for tutoring and I locked the door. I told him I had a surprise for him just to show appreciation for him helping me. He was like, "And what is that?" Long story short, we did the do on his desk. Both had a great time. After that, my grades were not a problem. So the next day I was freaking out telling my best friend everything that happened. And she was kind of happy for me. So after classes, I went home and my mom told me my dad was coming over for dinner. She was like, "Honey, he's moved closer to us so he can get closer to you." She goes, "He actually just started teaching after college." My stomach hit the floor. So I hear someone knock on the door and I am sweating. She opens the door. It's my professor. I blacked out and I don't remember anything after that.